all see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So this is our book. I'd really like it if some of you might like to recap what we've learned so far. I think this is where we left off. We're gonna start different types of communication.
Ma'am, rotate this so it can be more
Yes, sure.
clear.
So we're gonna start from here. So anyone would like to just recap, just brief recap of three topics. First topics. The first is, what is communication? So what is communication? Would anyone like to answer? Just a brief recap in your own words. All right, so communication is basically an exchange of thoughts, feelings, information, anything between two people. We discussed how facial expression, tone, etc. can have an effect on communication. We discussed why communication is so important over here. Then we discussed the different elements of communication, right? And we've got 6 elements. The first is that we need 2 people to communicate. One is the addresser and the second is the addressee, the person who is being addressed and the person who is doing the addressing. Second is the topic. Obviously, we need a topic to talk about. So we need a topic. The channel is the medium through which we are communicating. Examples here are letter, telephone, email, okay? Then there's the code, the language. So suppose 2 people talk in English, so their code would be English. Number 5th is the message form. That's basically the grammatical rules of the language, okay? And the setting, is it a social setting? Is it a physical setting? Okay, so where you are. All right, now then we something about the role of the decoder. The decoder is the person who listens. We discussed some learning skills, listening skills, right? How to listen actively. Then we discussed macro functions of communication. I gave you guys some examples. So would anyone else like to recap this for us in your own words? Anyone? If you recap, your memory would get sharper for the exams. You'd remember better because of repetition. So does anyone else want to recap? Help me with the recap. I'll help you along the way. You could start by telling us about the emotive function. Okay, I guess no one's ready today, huh? So the emotive function is basically to communicate the inner states and emotion of a person. Then there's the directive function. It affects the behavior of others. The fatigue function. It's basically to check if the channel is working. The channel, as if you remember, is the medium through which we are talking. So suppose when I say, am I audible to you guys? So I'm checking the channel. That would be the fatigue function. The poetic function is the aesthetic function of the language. Referential function is used to carry information. Metalinguistic function is it just focuses on the code itself. The code is our language. Okay. So any grammatical rules, it would all come into metalinguistic. Then we've got the contextual function. It basically
the aesthetic function
yes.
thing. Aesthetic function.
Aesthetic, yeah, that's the poetic function. We had some examples, if you remember. So these are some of the examples. The way we've got like no pain, no gain. Okay, so that's such a nice aesthetic. Like aesthetic is basically something very pretty, something you like to hear. So poetic function has all the aestheticness of our language. It's very beautiful. It's fun to say. It has a message, it basically has a message, and the message is conveyed very beautifully. So that's called the poetic function. Any doubts? Any doubts?
No.
Okay, good. We've got the contextual function last. It basically revolves around making a context, right? So suppose when I start, okay, I think we should start the meeting now. So I'm making context, right, for us. Now we've got barriers to communication. Okay, so what were the barriers? The barriers could be in the form of the code, the vocabulary, the concept. Someone may not know the background knowledge surrounding it. So all of these things, they could be physical environment. There is too much noise, or suppose this Zoom call keeps getting interrupted because of the heavy rains we've gotten. Suppose in case if the connection is weak today, so you guys might have trouble hearing me, and that could be a barrier to our communication. Okay, so these are all communication barriers. Now we are going to start with different types of communication. So communication is basically classified into these three types. Number one is the expression. How are you expressing your communication? Is it written? Is it oral? Is it gestural? Okay. Now there's flow. So flow could be internal and external. In internal flow, internal is basically, suppose you're working in a company. Okay. So when you talk to people inside your company, it would be internal. Okay. And when you talk to someone outside of your company, it would be external communication. A company needs to talk to other people, right? Maybe suppliers or customers, okay? So when you talk to someone outside of your company, it's external. When you talk to someone inside of your company, it is internal, okay? So in internal, we've got vertical and horizontal. We are going to learn more about it very soon. And after that, we've got relationship, what is the relationship, right? Is it formal or is it informal? Formal is basically when you talk inside of your company to someone like, maybe you talk to your production manager. Okay, so that will be a very formal interaction. There is, suppose you meet your work friends after work hours or in coffee break. So that would be a very informal communication. So first we are gonna read about, just let me clear this. Okay, so written, oral and gestural. Okay, so what is communication can be achieved through various media such as writing, speech, gestures and actions. So you could write something down for me, and if I read it, it's a communication between us. You could speak something. If I hear it, that's our communication. You could gesture something, like suppose I ask you a silent question, I mouth a question to you. Suppose we are in a busy place or you're on a phone call, and you can nod your head yes or a no. So that comes into gestures and actions, right? You are acting out the part, right? Suppose if you play a game of charades, and what do we do in that game, right? If anyone's ever played that game, we act out the movies, etc. So that would all come into gestural communication. Now, would someone like to read this part for me? From speech is primary, writing secondary. Anyone wants to read? Any volunteers?
Okay. Speech is primary, written secondary. That is, speech came first and the writing system was developed later on. There needs to be some languages which are spoken but not written. In fact, several tribal languages do not have any script. Definitely,
Okay,
some people
thank you so much. Okay, thank you for reading. So what does this line say? Speech is the primary communication. Why is that so? Because speech came first, right? Writing was developed later on.
Ma'am, your voice is cracking.
Is it still cracking? Is it clearer now?
It's fine.
Is it better now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, nice. Please tell me if my voice cracks or anything, because sometimes the data, the network keeps fluctuating. So if you tell me, I'll just move my position a bit, and that might fix it. Okay. So speech is basically primary mode. Why? Because it came before the writing system, right? As you all know, writing was developed much later. Before that, all the tribal language, in fact, there are many tribal languages even today that just have like a speech part in their languages, right? They do not have any written system. So after that, we've got, so the deaf and dumb people, the people who cannot hear and speak, they use gestures to communicate, right? It's called a sign language. We've got an Indian sign language, right? So I've got a little image over here. Can you all see the image? it's spelling out, it is spelling out ISL, that means the Indian Sign Language. Okay, so they communicate with each other and with people around them, their family members. Okay, how do they communicate? They communicate using this sign language. And as you all already know, the visually challenged people. Visually challenged means people who cannot see properly, right? So they use Braille for reading and writing. You might have heard about it in lower forms. I'm sorry for the disturbance. Yeah. So Braille, you might have heard about it in lower forms. They basically feel out the surfaces. The letters are a little bit upraised, so they are rough and upraised, so they could feel it with their fingers and understand what's written there. Now we've got at the workplace, communication in writing. Communicating in writing or via email is the most popular form of communication. Could anyone guess why is that? It's so that we have a record of it, right? We need to be able to trace it. Suppose we are having a meeting right now, okay, in our workplace. So we want a record of it, right? We need what new idea someone came up with, what are the statistics, right? We need a record. It has to be traceable. पर इसका ये मतलब नहीं है, this does not mean that workplace never uses oral communication. Of course we do, right? When you go into the meeting and you see your secretary or your co-worker, you're going to have a face-to-face interaction, you're going to talk. There could be telephone conference calls, there could be talks, lectures, discussions, etc., etc. But it would all be traceable, right? Anytime you have a telephone conference, it would be recorded. Anytime you have a meeting or a discussion, it would also be recorded. There would be the written notes, or it could be like recorded manually, anything, okay? Communication through body language is known as gestural communication. We all already knew that, right? So another image I've got. So these are some of the common things we do, right? To point somewhere, we can point with our fingers. We do the victory pose when we pose for a photo. Then we've got the finger guns, the perfect symbol, the thumbs up, thumbs down, the weird Spider-Man thing, and the fingers crossed, okay? All of these things we do from time to time. Oopsie, I think I did something. Give me a second. Okay. Hope my screen is visible. So now we come to downward, upward, horizontal communication. So if you remember, I gave a little example of internal and external over here, right? When I was explaining the flow. So how is it flowing? So the external communication could be when companies have to communicate with agencies, outside agencies, other companies, government, private bodies, newspapers, advertisers, manufacturers, builders.
Can you
Yes.
explain what vertical and horizontal is? I didn't understand that.
Yes, I'm coming to that. This is just basically external and internal. After that, we are going to come to downward, upward, and horizontal. Vertical communication is basically when you go upwards or you go downwards. Okay, I'll explain more in a bit. Could you please have some patience? Okay, just give me a little bit of patience. I'll just explain internal and external first, and then we can move on to that. So external is basically that, right? And communication within the company itself would be internal. Now we come to downward, upward, okay? The vertical ones. So the vertical ones are the downward and upward ones. These two, they come under vertical communication, whereas this horizontal communication is this one. Vertical is this one, right? Upward and downward is vertical. It could go upwards or it could go downwards. Horizontal is basically between two peers. So it would usually just go horizontally. I'll explain a bit more about it in a minute. So over here, we've got an example, right? Communication between a superior and a subordinate. So someone who is from higher, who has got a higher rank than you, comes and talks to you. So that is an example of a downward communication. Why? Because someone who was higher up than you, someone talking to you, a superior and a subordinate. So that is an example of the downward communication. After that, we've got another example. Subordinate or subordinates maybe come up with a concern or something, and they go to a higher authority to complain or make a suggestion or ask for some opinions or something, anything, okay? So that would be an example of the upward communication, okay? And both of these, upward and downward, upwards and downwards, both of these fall under this vertical communication, okay? I hope you understand now. Then there is lateral or horizontal communication that takes place between two office workers, right? We are both at the same level. Suppose production manager and a marketing manager. We are both at the same level. Suppose we could also be work friends, right? That could be the case. Or suppose just we aren't even friends. We are just working in the same company. Still we have a cordial relationship and we talk. So that would come under horizontal or lateral communication. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So now we've got formal and informal communication. What do I mean when I say formal communication? So communication done through the chain of command is known as formal communication. So whenever we go through the chain of command, what is the chain of command? It is like the highest authority, the person who owns the business, maybe they would be the highest authority. After that comes maybe his after that whoever comes, right? Okay, so that's how the chain of command works. And then the last person would be maybe the meager employees, right? So that's how the chain of commands work. After that, maybe there's above the employees, there's the head of the certain employees, right? That's how the chain of command goes. So a communication done through this chain of command, right? An employee can't just go up to the boss and express his concerns. He'll have to first file a complaint, maybe approach the boss's personal assistant or something and have a meeting booked and then talk, right? He can't just directly go to the boss and start talking ke ye sab pareshaniyan ho rahi hai mujhe. He can't do that, right? So such a communication has to be planned and established by the management. It clearly indicates the hierarchical relationship involved, okay? It has this relationship that you are talking to the boss, you're giving him maybe suggestions or anything, right? Even the boss, if he wants to talk to the employees, he's not going to go directly desk to desk and approach everyone, right? He'll maybe issue a memo or something to be distributed to everyone, or tell the heads of the different departments to have this talk with the employees, okay? Or maybe arrange a meeting, anything like that. He won't directly contact them. So that is formal. And informal would be something that takes place outside of the workplace, okay? Something outside of the workplace. If we go with okay, let's read what the textbook has to say first. Informal communication does not flow through the official channels of communication. It involves a spontaneous expression of reactions and ideas and is usually done orally. Hence, it may carry incomplete or incorrect information. Okay, so when you are outside of the workplace and you go for a drink with your coworker, okay, so that would be a very informal communication. It would have incorrect, incomplete information, okay? That's a completely different thing to formal communication between two coworkers, okay? So I've got some notes over here, some more explanation. So formal communication usually takes place in the workplace, okay? It's usually going to take place in the workplace. It's not going to be taking place in, say, a restaurant. Sometimes maybe if you meet a client from outside, right, external, for a meeting or to pitch an idea, you would maybe book a restaurant of a different caliber. It needs preparation of some kind, right? Whenever there's a formal communication, you don't just normally just casually walk in and say, hi, hello, kya chal raha hai? No, you don't do that. You maybe prepare some presentation, some documents, some file, anything, right? It has a fixed structure. It would either be upward or downward communication. It would it would be a formal communication. Basically, it's task oriented, like it's gonna have a main focus that we are going to have to finish right by the end of the formal communication, and it is officially sanctioned, and usually it is obligatory to attend. Example, a sales meeting, right? So an employee can't just go, okay, I don't feel like doing the meeting right now, let's just cancel it. You can't do that. Okay, so some notes similarly on informal communication. So this communication usually takes place outside of the workplace, or suppose during the lunch breaks or the coffee breaks. Okay, then it's usually horizontal and non-task oriented. It usually takes place between a horizontal is basically people who are on the same rank or the same level. So the informal communication usually takes place with people of the same rank. And it is non-task oriented, right? Suppose you went to pay a friend a visit. So it's not going to be task oriented. You are not going to have some specific goal to work on. You are just casually meeting a friend. It could be personal, emotional, etc. It is generally quick and flexible and uses spoken language, whereas formal communication would use written language, and if there's oral language, it would still be traceable, right? Okay, any questions regarding this? Oh, we've got a textbook example over here. Let's look at that. So you will use informal language while talking to your brother at home. But if your brother also happens to be your boss in office and a formal meeting is going on in the office, you will address him in a different way. That is informal style. Okay. So what they're basically saying is, suppose your brother and sister, and at home you're gonna tease him, talk to him normally, casually, right? It would be very casual. But suppose you both are, suppose your brother is also your boss, you go to work every day, so you're going to address him very differently in front of all the other people there, right? And I've got this little, oh, I don't know why this image is blurred. Can you see this image? Is it like legible? Can you read it? Can you read it?
Planned
If not, I
communication.
think I'll read it. Yeah. Okay, so I'll read it. So we've got two columns over here, internal and external. And if you take it vertically, we've got formal and informal, right? So in internal and formal, when the conversation is internal, that is taking place inside the workplace, as well as formal. So it would be a planned communication among insiders, right? It would have a chain of command. It would follow the company's chain of command. Some examples are like maybe someone sends a memo, report, email, instant messages, executive blogs, conference calls, presentations, etc. Now, if there is an external and formal communication, some of the examples could be planned. It would still be planned, right? It would, because it's formal. Formal communications are usually pre-planned. You prepare for them, okay? So planned communication with outsiders, such as letters, reports, speeches, websites, instant messages, news releases, advertising, executive blogs. Then we've got internal and informal. So when two of these mix, we get a casual communication among employees, such as two employees sending each other emails, instant messages, talking face to face, phone calls, team blogs, and wikis. They do not follow the company's chain of command. They don't have to announce, okay, we are both going to have a conversation right now. No, they can just talk, right? Then we've got external and informal. So in this, what happens is casual communication with suppliers, customers, investors, and other outsiders. So suppose a salesperson is talking to a customer, he's not going to be very formal, right? He's going to be like, hello, how are you? What would you like? He would be formal to an extent, but it would be mostly informal, right? When we are talking to suppliers, right? We are not like super formal. We are like mostly formal. Things are already done in the contract. Now we are going to address each other as normal human beings. Okay. I hope this is clear to everyone. Is it?
Yes.
Nice. So, okay, I had a poll question here, but unfortunately, we couldn't do this today. We were running a bit late. So this was the question. A brainstorming session between storyboard artists is an example of options are A, downward communication, B, upward communication, C, horizontal communication, D, none of the above. So since all of you guys probably understood all of these topics, so could anyone answer this? I need someone to answer this question for me, please. Even if it's wrong, I want you to try.
Scroll down. I can't see.
Okay. You want the options, right? So
Yeah.
is the question clear? A brainstorming session between storyboard artists. Okay. These are the options.
Horizontal communication.
Could you repeat that?
Horizontal communication.
Horizontal, very good. That's great. It would be horizontal communication because storyboard artists are of the same rank. If they are having a storyboard session, that would be a horizontal communication. Thank you so much. That was very well done. I can see that you paid attention to what I was saying. Thank you. Now we can move on to written versus oral communication. So both of these modes can be used for communicating anything, right? You could either write it or you could speak it. Now, the speaker and the writer, the person who's writing and the person who's speaking, both of them have some advantages as well as some disadvantages. So that's basically what we are going to discuss here. So we've got some nice lengthy paragraphs over here talking about that. So I think we can get on with this. Anyone would like to read? Only the highlighted parts. Any volunteers?
The speaker has available to him or her the full range of voice quality effects, as well as facial expressions, postural and gestural systems, but these paralinguistic features are denied to the writer.
Okay, thank you so much. Please stop. So the speaker has available to him the full range of voice quality effects, right? So he could use the way, like suppose he could speak real slow to grab the whole attention of the audience. When someone is speaking very slowly in a low tone to you, you need to like lean in to hear what they're saying, right? So when he does that, you need to lean in, you are paying full concentration on him. So he's got all these abilities, right? He could maybe something very important comes up and he suddenly raises his voice. So you're going to pay more attention to it. Okay. So those are all a speaker's advantages, basically. While the writer cannot use gestures or postures or expressions, right? The writer is denied all of these things because he's writing. Okay, he or she. So the writer, on the other hand, has typographical variety at his disposal, right? He could use different fonts and stuff, right? Maybe he could use all caps to display something very jarring from the usual text, right? Something very important. Say usually disclaimers are written in all caps, right? Or something, maybe some scary words or some important words they want to highlight, so they could underline them or attach, or they could like use the text on them and they would become bold than the other things. And that's the thing the writer can use, right? So that's the writer's advantage. He can't use facial expressions, but he could use typographical variety. So, okay.
Nada, ma'am.
Yes.
If horizontal is people of the same rank, then vertical is people of different ranks.
Yes, people of different ranks. So in vertical, we've got downward communication and upward communication. So in downward communication, when a superior comes and talks to an inferior in the sense that superior is someone who's supposed the head of the department, and the inferior person is basically the employee, right? Just the rankings. Okay. So suppose the head of the head of the whole corporation comes and talks to you, and you are an employee. So it would be an example of downward communication. Now, suppose the situation is reversed. You, the employee, go to your head of the workplace, right? And you tell him your concerns or your suggestions or your ideas, okay? So that would be an upwards communication. You're communicating to someone above you, so it's upwards. You're communicating to someone below you, so it would be downwards. This is the best way I can put it. Is it clear now?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, welcome. Please ask your questions, queries, doubts. Okay, I feel very nice. I feel that you are paying attention, you are engaging, you are thinking about what I'm saying. Okay. So continue with this. Any more doubts? I guess no. So let's continue. So more advantages and disadvantages. So in oral communication, the speaker, they can monitor the reactions of the hearer, right? I can, whenever I ask a question, I can tell that someone is not answering, someone is not paying attention or anything, right? Because maybe you guys are all staring into space, not looking at me if we were face to face, right? Then the speaker could obviously plan what he's gonna say to match the overall pattern, right? Suppose you guys weren't paying attention, like suppose how I did right now. Okay, so I was continuing with this, and then suddenly someone came up with a doubt. So I can obviously plan my next utterance, right? I can be like, okay, so now I have to address the doubt and not continue with this. Okay, that's some basic things, but the speaker can do this by gauging the reaction of the audience. So but the speaker also has to keep talking during the allotted time period. Okay, so I've got this meeting, I've arranged this meeting, so now I have to talk the full hour or whatever, 1 hour 15 minutes, whatever the time the meeting goes on. I have to talk the full time, I have to explain things. Okay, then comes interpret his or her interlocutor. Okay, so basically I have to interpret your silences, your doubts, your questions. Okay, then I have to also realize when to hand over the turn, I have to realize when I should maybe give someone else a chance to read. Okay, so this is handing over the turn is basically letting the other person speak, right? So I need to know when to let you all speak. Okay, and I must be in command of the all this conversational skills to have an effective conversation. Okay, we have certain advantages as well.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yes, please.
If I give a presentation to some people,
Yes.
there is
Mhm.
there is people who are in same grade, there are people who are in upper grade. So the communication is which type? Horizontal, vertical, or
Okay, so the vertical and horizontal conversations are usually used in the workplace. Okay, so if you are asking about a presentation you are giving to maybe seniors as well as juniors, so in that case you are probably a senior or a junior yourself, but the conversation you are having, the dynamics change, right? Because now you've got an audience and you are the person speaking. Okay, so the dynamic between seniors and juniors kind of flips there, right? Now you are the main person who's presenting, and you've got an audience which is made up of people who would otherwise be your seniors or your juniors. Okay, so the dynamic has flipped. Now you are the main person, right? So it would be a downward communication because you are addressing people, your audience, right? So you've got a higher rank than them technically. Is it clear?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, so but I'd like to preface it by saying that vertical and horizontal communication is not usually used outside of the workplace. It's usually like these are the terms you use in the workplace, right, to make communication more effective. All right, any more doubts? Okay, so the speaker will have certain advantages as well. They could observe observe their interlocutor. Okay, and then they could modify what they are speaking. Right, midway they could modify their sentences. And oral communication is much quicker than written. Right, it's more economical and it's more effective. How economical? Like if I have to speak something, I can just speak it, right? If I want to write something, I'll need a pen, I'll need a paper, right? I'll need these things, and I have to hand over the paper. And like basically that was a very small example, very small scale example. Basically what I mean is in a workplace, right, if you just have a normal oral meeting, that would be much more economical than say printing dozens of memos for all of your employees, right? So that's a more economical choice. And oral communication tends to be more effective, right? Because people tend to skip over in communication. And okay, so doubts and misunderstandings can be cleared on the spot, right? That's our advantage right now. You guys can ask me doubts, I can respond to your doubts and maybe clear them. Okay, suppose if you're reading this textbook on your own, and if you had a doubt, so what are you gonna do? You could maybe email someone like Monica Mishra ma'am or someone about your doubts or anything like that, but that would take so much time, right, in getting your doubts cleared. But here, since I'm explaining, I'm the one who's doing all the talking, so you can just ask me and your doubts would get cleared. Now, variations in spoken language. So what are the variation? It could be because of social and cultural differences, right? The dialectual differences, the accents, the paralinguistic features and body language. Okay, so all of these things just make speech less organized than written language, because written language, since you type it out most of the time, right? So a typed written language, there is no what do you call it, no problem if a person has an American accent, right? The writing, if the writing doesn't have any accent, you'd be easily able to infer what they are trying to say. While if they are speaking to you, if a person with a very American accent comes and speaks to you, so you could maybe have some trouble deciphering what they're trying to say. Okay, so that's basically what they mean over here. How are they going to be misunderstandings? Something else, so that would be a misunderstanding. Okay, is it still cracking? Okay, give me a minute. Give me a minute. Am I more clear now?
Yes.
Is this more clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's continue then. Would someone like to read this for me? No one? Okay, I'll read it then. Oral communication is less reliable because it is not available in future. So why is it less reliable? Suppose you need a record, right? You can't just be like, oh, tune ye bola tha. You need to have a proof that you need to have something to point to. Okay, you said this. I know you said this because I've got it written down. So if it was something that is written down, you could easily point to it as a proof. While someone has said something to you, there is no witnesses. So how are you gonna prove that they said something, right? It's less reliable. You even forget many of the things when you hear them just orally, right? If you've got a written record, it's much easier to remember things. Oral communication is also affected by attitudes, personality, self-interest, beliefs, values, and prejudices of the sender as well as the receiver, and also the time and circumstances of the communication. So oral communication is affected by all of these factors too. We already discussed about them in barriers of communication. So yeah, I don't think I need to explain it much further, right? The personality of the person is obviously going to have an effect. If they are a friendly personality, then people are going to gravitate towards them. It's going to be easier to understand them, right? Another thing is oral communication is not suitable for lengthy messages, okay? So suppose if there's a whole book of worth of things you want to say to someone. They need to know all of these things. You can't tell it to them in like one go. Okay, so that could only be done it by writing it down and sending it to them, right? That would be easy. Oral communication also cannot be sent to someone who's living very far away from you and suppose widely scattered people, okay? Nowadays, it is maybe possible due to smartphones and everything, but it would still be more difficult, right? First, I have to get you all to agree to come to a meeting or agree to have a conference call, and then we need to decide a time, right? It's more complicated, okay? Similarly, the written mode gives the writer certain advantages as well as disadvantages. Anyone wants to read this? This one paragraph? Okay. Since the writer is writing for an absent reader, they may look over, reflect, and edit what they have written with no fear of being interrupted by their interlocutor. They can take his or her time in choosing a particular word, even looking it up in the dictionary if necessary. Reorder what they have written, and even change their mind about what they have to say. Okay, they are under no pressure to keep on writing. They can destroy what they've written. They get thrown in the dustbin. They do not have basically any fear of offending the reader because the writing has not been published yet, right? It's still in the process of being written. But the writer also has some disadvantages. They cannot have immediate feedback, right? Suppose I'm writing a book, I cannot gauge how I'm not directly telling it to someone, so I do not know how people are going to react to it. I can only imagine it. Okay, maybe they will laugh at this joke I wrote, or maybe they are all going to think this is the lamest joke ever. Okay, they do not know, they can only imagine it. Written communication ensures the transmission of information. Okay, if we are writing something down, right, you can completely ensure that once you give it to the person it was supposed to be for, they are going to see it, they are going to take it, and the transition is going to be complete. It has little risk of unauthorized alteration in the message. Okay, someone else is not going to come and cut a few lines and no one's going to know, right? You can't just cut lines out of a printed paper. Basically what I mean is you can't alter the message. The message is still gonna be the same thing. If you do any altercation, it would clearly show. It provides a permanent record for future references. Written communication also tends to be complete, precise, and unambiguous. Why is that? Because the writer has so much time to reflect, right? They are in no hurry. I have to finish this right now. They could take time. They could like maybe even pull an all-nighter, take all the time they need to write and make a perfect, complete communication. Okay. The message could also be repeated at regular intervals. Okay, so there's suppose this message. Okay, so suppose take the schedule we have, right? Our class schedule. So we can keep repeating it, like we can keep sending it to all the groups after a repeated span of time because new people keep joining in and we need to send it to them, right? So that's an example. But written communication is also time consuming, expensive, and rigid. It becomes difficult to maintain secrecy. Right, when you send a written communication to everyone, you can't just keep it secret, right? When you have forwarded a link, you can't be sure that other people aren't gonna forward it to other people, right? There is no secrecy in that. It is also time consuming because you have to write the whole thing out while speaking. It could be more time saving. Okay, writing is expensive, as I said earlier. It is also rigid. Once it's written and published, you can't take it back. Okay, so at a workplace, face-to-face conversation and telephone communications are generally confirmed in writing by post or email. So even if you have a face-to-face conversation about something with a person, you're going to email that person again to confirm it, right? Okay, ये चीज हमने बात तो कर ली है, पर confirm करने के लिए हमें message करना पड़ेगा, right? Okay, that's about it for written versus oral. Any doubts? Any doubts, any queries?
No, ma'am.
Okay, nice. Now we come to different types of face-to-face interactions. Okay, give me a few minutes to get myself a drink of water, and then we can continue with this. You all can have some water too. Hydrate yourselves. Okay, so I'm back with a nice refreshed voice. We can start with different types of face-to-face encounters, interactions. Okay, so Brown and Yule, 1983, they basically gave these two terms. Okay, so the terms are the function of language where the transfer of information is involved is called transactional, and the function involved in expressing social relations and personal attitudes is called interactional. Okay, so what is the difference between transactional and interactional? Transactional is something which is where there's a transfer of information, there's a transfer of value. Okay, there's a one-sided transfer of value. That's called transactional. They've given us an example. There's no message for you. Person B says, okay, and that's the end of their conversation. That was a very transactional thing. Okay, and interactional is, how are you? Fine, thank you. So this person is concerned about the other person, and this person is replying to them basically. So I didn't find these examples to be very clear, so I got some more examples. So in a transactional example, an exchange between a salesman and a customer could be one example. So suppose the salesman asks, what size would you like, ma'am or sir? And the customer could answer, I need a medium size. Okay. So similarly for interactional, it could be, it could be a chat. There are chat rooms on the internet, right? So the two people chatting there about their favorite shows, right? They would basically have a interactional conversation. Why? Because they are interacting with each other, right? Have you watched the new episode of the show? Character A absolutely blew my mind with their actions, right? Of course I did, and that was no surprise. I could already tell he was a bad sort. Okay, so these are two people talking basically. So what is interactional is where you are basically both the parties are providing some value to the conversation. Both of them are interacting with each other. It's two-sided. Okay, and transactional is basically more of a one-sided thing, right? You want something from the other person. Maybe you go to a restaurant. Okay, you go to a restaurant and you order something, so you and the waiter don't have a very, what do you call it, interactional conversation, right? You just have a very transactional conversation. The server has served like a billion people before you. He's going to serve many after you. Okay, and you also have been served by many people. When you go to different restaurants, you are probably not even going to ask for their names. Okay, you're just going to have a very transactional interaction. Similarly, with a friend, when you talk with a friend, it's going to be very interactional. You're going to ask them questions. They are going to ask you questions in turn. Okay, is this clear? If not, it's going to get more clear. Don't worry. So I've got some images over here. Can you all see it?
Yes.
Okay, so the transactional model of communication. Okay, so there is a sender or an encoder. They are asking which way to the restroom. Okay, that's their message, and they've got a channel. They are face-to-face interacting. Okay, so the feedback could be, follow me, I'll show you to the restroom. Okay, it could be in a say hotel or a restaurant. Okay, so so basically they don't even know each other's names. Okay, probably this person just needs to go to the restroom. They are asking this person, could you show me the way to the restroom? Okay, it's very transactional. Okay, is this clear? I think it should be clear now.
Yes.
Okay, and we've got an example of interaction and transaction. So as you can see, the interaction one has got, someone is speaking, well, one person is speaking, the other person is patiently listening to them, and then maybe perhaps answering to them. Okay, so it's very two-sided. But in transaction, there's basically just an exchange of value. Okay, they are here just for the exchange of value. They are not here to chit chat. As soon as their work is gonna get done, they are gonna probably separate out their ways. Okay, it's just a transactional thing, whereas interaction is where you're gonna keep talking. Okay, you're gonna think, then you're gonna respond. Okay, and in transaction, there's only gonna be an exchange of value or information. Okay, is this clear?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, could you please repeat? Your voice crack.
Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So in business transactions, does anyone want to read this part? Would anyone like to read this part for me? No? Okay, I guess I'll read it then. In business transactions, one has to use language for different types of face-to-face interaction. Some of them could be, number one, conversation for establishing social contact, performing various functions, such as introducing oneself and others, making inquiries, giving and seeking information, giving instructions, reporting conversations, giving the company's profile, describing persons, places, and processes, developing relationships, getting people to do things, offering help, seeking help, apologizing, persuading, elaborating, arguing a point, examining a situation, comparing two products, negotiating business deals, asking for and giving advice, etc. Okay, so in face-to-face interactions, one of the reasons could be to state all of these things. Okay, so if you all remember, in the beginning of the class, we all introduced ourselves, or well, some of us are still hesitant to do that, sadly. So the ones who did, you all will realize that this is this was a face-to-face interaction, even though we were not face-to-face. Okay, another point where face-to-face interaction is used is participating in discussion. So we are doing a discussion over here right now, right? We are discussing English communication. We are discussing our IGNOU materials. Okay, so this is a discussion. Number three is taking part and conducting meetings and interviews. So in meetings and interviews, again, face-to-face interaction would be needed. Lecturing. Suppose I'm lecturing you guys about this topic right now. Okay, so this is also a face-to-face interaction. Demonstrating company's product. If you're suppose you're the company's salesperson, okay, so you go to other companies or the other customers, potential customers, and you or clients, and you demonstrate your products to them. Okay, so that would also need face-to-face interaction. Number six is talking about where you work, describing simple and everyday operations, all that. Okay, so most of these encounters will be transactional, while some of these will be interactional. Okay, so right now, okay, so basically most of these are going to be transactional, right? And some of these have the potential to become interactional. How? Suppose you went to a client, and then suppose you both really love something like football. Okay, and you both just form a mutual liking towards one another through talking about that. Okay, so that could become interactional randomly, right? Suppose they ask you, okay, what did you know what was the game score, and you answer, and then that becomes interactional. Okay, so most of these would be transactional, but it has a potential to become interaction. Now we come to conversation. So what is a conversation? So interaction at a workplace, that is meeting and greeting people in business and developing a conversation. Okay, so conversation, when this is all in the context of the workplace, I hope that's clear till now. Okay, this was all in the context of a workplace, a work environment. Okay, all of these things. So there are some rules, right? When you talk face to face in a conversation, there are some unspoken rules. Okay, so let's look at them. So Richards and Smith point out the term conversation is used somewhat ambiguously in current literature. Okay, we say conversation when two people are messaging each other, it's very ambiguous. Okay, there's no exact definition, but it is used sometimes to refer to any spoken encounter or interaction, and sometimes more restricted 2. So talk occurring when a small number of participants come together and settle into what they perceive to be a few moments cut off from or carried on to the side of instrumental tasks. A period of idling felt to be an end in itself, during which everyone is accorded the right to talk as well as to listen, and without reference to a fixed schedule. Okay, so something is going on, some instrumental task. Okay, and we just take a few moments away from the task and we both talk to each other. So they are saying that is a conversation, right? And then everyone is accorded the right to talk. Everyone is going to talk in that conversation. Everyone has to participate in it. Okay. Everyone is accorded the status of someone whose overall evaluation of the subject matter at hand. Okay, so everyone will talk about something, okay, and they would have to have an evaluation of the subject matter at hand, okay, whatever the subject is. Okay, it is to be encouraged and treated with respect. Whatever your opinions, your suggestions are, it has to be treated with respect. Even if I don't even if I don't agree with it, I'll have to disagree very politely with you if I want to. Okay, I can't just outright go and start fighting with you. Okay, this is all in a workplace environment. Okay, remember that. And no final agreement or synthesis is demanded. Differences of opinion are to be treated as unprejudiced and to the continuing relationship of the parties. Okay, so it's not compulsory to have a synthesis or an agreement in the end. In fact, it usually never happens, right? So this was given by Goffman, 1976. Okay, so all talk, it is pointed out, is rooted in its surrounding, but conversation in this more restricted sense is not very firmly rooted to the world as other kinds of utterances. The activities which are directly governed by norms for the use of speech are termed speech events. So the activities governed by the norms for the use of speech are termed as speech events. Okay, as speech events, conversations can be contrasted with other speech events such as lectures, discussions, interviews, debates, meetings. Okay, so conversation is one of the speech events. It could be contrasted and compared with other speech events like lectures, discussions, etc. Okay, so in fact, that's the next topic: characteristics and conventions of the conversation. Okay, so I think we'll leave this for tomorrow, for the next lecture. Just 2 more topics and then we are done. But it's already 8:40. We don't want to take too long, otherwise people will sleep, right? So I have one question over here. We'll just finish that question and then we can end the meeting. Okay. So, okay, not this one. Where did that go? Ah, here it is. Okay. So the Zoom meeting we all are having right now, it is an example of A, transactional, or B, interactional. What do you guys think? I need someone to answer.
Interactional.
Interactional. Okay, thank you. So the basic thing is, this was a trick question. There is no correct answer. Why? Because it depends, right? It depends. It's subjective thing. Why is it subjective? Because for some of you, it's just transactional. I am providing a value. I am like, suppose I'm explaining all of this material to you. Okay. So this is my value and you are just here for the value. You are just here to understand this thing. And then you're going to separate out to your ways. For some of you, we are friends. You want to interact with me. Okay, you are providing to this conversation too. You are what do you call it, you are adding value to this as well. You are reading for me or you are answering questions. You are giving some value back over here, right? So when you are giving back value, it would become interactional. It has the potential to become interactional, otherwise it would be transactional. Okay, understood?
It's a discussion, so it should be not.
Yes, since it's a discussion, it would be interactional. But since most of you do not view it as a discussion, you view it as like maybe a teacher-student relationship or something. So So it could be transactional for some of you, while for others, it could be interactional. The people who are answering with me, right? So we are both talking, we are both actively engaging. Maybe we are sharing personal details, like this is my name and I like these things, okay? So when we are sharing all of that information, it becomes interactional. And if we are not sharing all of these things, it would become transactional. Okay, that's what I'm saying. For some of you, it's interactional. For others, it's transactional. Okay. Am I making myself clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
It
Okay.
varies from people
So that's
to
about it.
people.
I think, yeah, it varies from pupil to pupil, simply because some of you view it as a discussion. You guys are answering, okay, while others are just simply not responding when I ask, okay. Okay, there were some messages over here. I'm so sorry I couldn't see them. The thing is, when I'm sharing the screen, I cannot see the messages. I forgot to say that in the beginning of the meeting. I said that last time. I should have repeated it, but I forgot. I'm so sorry I couldn't answer to you. So when I'm sharing my screen, I cannot see the messages. Okay, so it would be better for you guys to just unmute and speak up. Okay, so thank you so much for attending this meeting, and we will finish off this chapter in the next session. Okay. Thank you for coming. Next lecture would be on Friday, same time. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. See you all in the next session, hopefully.
Yes. Bye bye. Bye everyone.